Hi guys, it's Nazir with the final project for Java 1.14.09. This week we created a connected app that uses an API to pull a JSON feed and display it on a screen. So for this app, I just decided to go with a simple weather app using the Yahoo API. Target SDK version set for 19. In my main activity, I set a couple final strings for the tag and also for the grid layout keys. List for the forecast that I'm pulling through. I also use the butter knife to call and connect views to these variables. Also use the form onClick here. So when a user enters the zip code, it takes the beginning part of the URL and then adds in the zip code entered by the user and then adds the second part of the URL to it for the full URL. Now if the zip code is either smaller or bigger than 5, it will display an error message. Otherwise, it will call a method called requestData. In requestData, I created my task, which is an async task, and I pass in the URL. And on pre-execute, I display the progress bar. Going on to do in background, I call the HTTP manager class that I created, which is a helper class to pull the data and pass in the URL. It gets the URL, it opens the connection, pulls a string, and sends back a string builder. So back here, we're out of the do in background onto the post. On post execute, I set the visibility of the progress bar to visible as we've already gotten all the data. So here I check if the content returned by the HTTP manager is null. I'll display a message saying I can't connect. Then for my weather list, I call the class weather.json parser, which takes in the result, passes it on to this helper class that parses JSON pretty much. It takes in a string called content. Here I instantiate the API data with the passed in content, create a new weather object, and then I create a JSON object called channel that holds the channel from that returned API. And then I do a simple check to make sure that the zip code is correct. If it's not, it returns null, so it can display an error message. Otherwise, it would go through and assign the wanted string to an element of the object, and then returns that object. If the weather list for that zip code returns null, that means it's an invalid zip code, and that will return that toast message. And then I call my update display method. Okay, so in the update display, I do a simple check to make sure the weather list is not null, and then assign the text based on the object variable to the label, and then call the populates list view and pass in the weather object. And this is to populate forecast grid view. Down here I created a JSON array to store the data I'm getting from the weather object. In here I start updating the hash map based on the data in the JSON array. And then create the keys and the views and pass that to a simple adapter. Then connect my grid view to the actual element. I pass the adapter to it. Type in. And it keeps the zip code up here, displays the city and the state, and this text view over here is based on auto resize text view, so that if a city is much larger than what can fit in this box, it would actually resize it to fit. Then displays the current weather for it, a little bit of description over here, and populates each cell of the grid view based on items coming from the forecast array. So that was it for my weather application, my final application in Java. It's been a pretty fun month. Looking forward to the next one. See you guys.